The prospect of the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union has been dominating British political life ever since the referendum in 2016. The 48% who voted to remain haven't given up hope and constantly remind members of Parliament that they haven't gone away. But within the Westminster bubble, relatively little thought has been given to Britain's constituent parts, the countries, and they are countries, that make up the United Kingdom. Scotland's position was highlighted at a conference in London organised by the Federal Trust and the Scottish Centre on European Relations.
I think Brexit is very problematic for Scotland. Scotland is divided over independence. It's not divided over Brexit. It would like to stay in the EU, so it sharpens the decision about, do you leave with the UK, do you embrace independence? And a big chunk of Scotland's population didn't want to have to make that choice. But I think the Conservative government refused to discuss any form of differentiation for Scotland. They discussed it for Northern Ireland with good reason because of the peace process, but that's also proved very problematic given the backstop debate. But they didn't even begin that discussion with Scotland.
In England, you'd hardly know that the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh even exists. English media tends to be London-centric and Eurosceptic, but there are very deep concerns in Scotland about being dragged out of the EU despite an overwhelming vote to remain. Whatever the outcome of Brexit, it could influence what happens north of the border.
Back in 2017, a majority of the members of the Scottish Parliament, not just the Nationalists but also the Greens, voted that Scotland should be allowed to hold another independence referendum before Scotland got taken out of the EU against its will. Now, so far, the British government have refused us the legitimate means to do that. But there's a big problem of democracy here in that the representatives of the Scottish people, through a democratic vote, have said they want another independence referendum, and the British government is denying them the legitimate means. So in the weeks and months to come, Scotland is going to have to find a way around that.
The debate clearly affects the countries of the United Kingdom, not just England. But England's vote to leave the EU was partly down to the way that regions outside of London felt forgotten by a political system obsessed with itself.
One of the problems of the United Kingdom, which I think has led to Brexit, is this obsession with Westminster as being the be-all and end-all of political life. It isn't, and there are important political movements that go on in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, and it's the short-sightedness of many MPs, I'm afraid, which is messing up the Brexit negotiations at the moment. When we see that MPs confidently believe that Mr. Cox, Sir Geoffrey Cox, was going to be able to get rid of the backstop simply by shouting at the Europeans. It's a matter for despair for me.
Brexit is very much about English nationalism. There's a problem with English identity. There's a lot of very serious divisions in English society, and it's not to say there's none of those divisions in Scotland, but Scotland in a way is a country more at ease with itself. And England, I think, is going to take very many years, whatever happens next with Brexit, very many years to sort out what being English means.
One purpose of this meeting was to launch a book of research into attitudes towards Europe. Perhaps not surprisingly, they vary wildly. The Baltic states, for instance, are concerned with security, being close to Russia, while southern countries are more worried about immigration. Some of the findings came as a surprise.
There are a lot of contradictions there, different priorities and different wishes and hopes for European integration, but also different levels of engagements of the countries. Some think they're more the periphery of the European projects and would rather expect the European institutions to play a bigger role in their country. And the other countries think, well, we know what to do. We want to lead the European project. We don't need any European institutions. We will do it ourselves. And this is where this whole melting pot of diversity and diverse points of views comes in. And this is what makes Europe interesting.
The British public, at least in England, have been repeatedly told that Brexit will have a detrimental effect on the European Union. The EU has more to lose than the UK, but that may not be true.
I think indeed you shouldn't exaggerate the extent to which it's going to have an effect on the EU. For the past 10 years, Britain's been in effect a semi-detached member of the European Union, and the most important decisions within the European Union relating to the Eurozone have been taken without Britain. I think the crucial question for the future of the European Union is the Eurozone. And there I think there are good hopes that a more integrated, a more coherent approach to the Eurozone is developing among the major states of the European Union.
While some in Scotland favour independence from the United Kingdom, in Catalonia feelings run high. Madrid has been very tough with separatists, and the European Union has shown itself willing only to sit on its hands.
I think the EU has always been very uneasy with criticising its own member states. That's why it's kind of put strong human rights conditions on those countries trying to join, but it's taken a lot more time and more gentle steps to monitoring human rights within the European Union, and it's the same with these constitutional changes. It gets very nervous about commenting or intervening, whether in UK, Scotland, Catalonia, Spain, and yet I think it's not doing itself any good by simply stepping back and kind of saying nothing to do with us. It's a little bit of a cowardly option.
I think you cannot really compare the two cases, in Spain, this is an internal issue, I would say, and in the UK, the Scottish question is totally different. And we cross the bridge when we come to it, but every nation state, independent nation state, new nation state, if it is accepted as a nation state, has actually the right to apply for membership to the European Union.
Meanwhile, as pro-EU campaigners continue to hope for a chance to stay in Europe, Scotland must consider its future. It comes to a cold equation: stay linked to the UK or look to a future with the EU.
It's very true to say at the moment that England is Scotland's major trading partner, but that was the position for the Republic of Ireland back in the early 70s when it joined the European Union, and now the Republic of Ireland does its major trading with the European Union. And in actual fact, for Scotland, the biggest area of growth in Scotland's trade is foreign trade with the European Union. So Scotland needs to look to the future. Do we want to be part of a market of 500 million people, the European Union, or part of a market of 65 million people, the United Kingdom? And I think the answer to that is a bit of a no-brainer.
It's too early to predict the outcome of that decision. The United Kingdom has never been more disunited, nor any government more obsessed with a single issue. Whatever happens, Brexit looks set to leave scars across British society for generations to come.